Hello, and welcome to the Astrology Channel. This is our weekly/daily horoscopes. I am Joji, and I'm, as always, with my friend Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Joe.
Cool. What do we have happening this week?
We have Mercury moving into Virgo. Very nice. And Mercury applying to a sextile with Mars on Wednesday. Jupiter will be square the Sun on Thursday. And then there will be a Mercury-Venus Contra Antiscia building up on Saturday, which is kind of awesome because both Mercury and Venus are super strong in their own signs.
Yeah, I feel like this is officially the week that marks we're out of the we're out of the woods, as Taylor Swift would say.
Or we're in a clearing in the woods, at least. There are more
Nice.
woods ahead, we'll say, but
Yeah, it's gonna get a little spotty, but at least we get some this week. But
yeah.
on that note, let's actually look at the week. Of course, we start our week with Monday. This is September 9th. The moon is waxing. She's fallen in her element. She's in Venus Decan and in Saturn's terms, moving from a trine to Saturn towards a trine to Neptune while exchanging signs with Mars. This one's cool because, as we've talked about in the previous week, the moon kind of starts the week in the same modality for a couple of weeks at a time. And this moon in Scorpio is really kind of like the last moon in fixed signs on a Monday that we'll be getting for a while. And we'll steadily be moving towards mutability, which for me, I really like because if fixity is making things stable and making things the same, and the past little while was a little not great, it's nice to go into mutability to change away from some of those things. I just think that looking at this image today, the moon might just have some interesting ideas on how to do that. So I have the moon, this witchy little figure, brewing potions and conjuring spirits to maybe disturb her enemies a little. I feel like the trine to Saturn, exchanging signs with Mars, adds a little bit of a malefic flavor to the moon. And maleficence isn't always bad. Sometimes you do want to destroy things, and I feel like that's the power of the moon today to destroy what needs to be destroyed potentially. Maybe even destroy some illusions and delusions around certain things.
I think what keeps coming to mind for me is how the processes for making poisons, brewing the malefic potions, is not so different than the ones for making antidotes to those poisons. Usually, you have to collect venom in order to create anti-venom. So we get a bit of those. It's still working with maybe malefic material or topics, but finding solutions to those sorts of problems would be constructive use of it. Like the Mars Moon mutual reception, while both are in fall, is they don't cancel each other out, but you end up getting like sort of the good and bad of both of them. Moon Mars stuff is not stuff you always like being brewed in the same pot, but every now and then they kind of kick ass together and teach each other how to be themselves by accidentally being each other. And then it gets a little easier as we move into the moon and Sag towards the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's good to remember too that Mars and the moon play on the same team. They're both nocturnal planets. So
Mhm.
there is collaboration that can happen. Maybe just a little noxious.
Yeah.
But on that note, today's a little bit of a middling day. We have 3 difficulty and 3 agency, kind of just keeping us even. And it's not too difficult. We can do what we can about those not so difficult things. Cool. So moving on, we go to our Tuesday. Sexy Mars, fallen in fallen in his element in Venus's decan in his own terms, soon receiving a sextile from Mercury.
So this is our first Tuesday with Mars and Cancer. We're gonna have a lot of Tuesdays with Mars and Cancer.
Yeah, we
Um,
will.
yeah, it's but Mars is at least still direct, still thinks that it's moving forward and that it will, not be stuck here forever. She won't be stuck here forever, just for a big chunk of the next 8 months or so. But Mars is actually pretty weirdly strong in lots of Cancer. It has triplicity. It's bound in the first 7 degrees of Cancer. So it's a potentially beefy Mars. It just has to figure out where to wield the sword, you might say. Around the house is not always the best place to play with swords, but they look very cool on a wall, mounted. And if you have an intruder, They can be handy. Yeah. He looks deeply ambivalent about whether or not he wants to pick up the sword. It's a good sword, but finding a place to use it is always the question and potential problem.
Yeah, and that's what I was drawing into with this one too, because I really liked what you said a couple weeks ago about sextile kind of being like these optional aspects. And I like thinking about Mercury sextiles as like there's a tool for the thing that you need.
Yeah.
And so in this image, we have Mars taking its first steps into the river of Cancer, and he finds a sword. I think the biggest question is, should we wield it? Should we not? What do we do with this sword? It's been in the water for a long time. It's probably kind of dull to begin with. So what are we doing here? I feel like that there's these big sort of questions that Mars might be faced with on this day, like where to channel some of that angsty energy. And I feel like that's a thing that's really important to keep in mind throughout these Tuesdays with Mars and Cancer, is that sometimes the instinct of Mars and Cancer is to kind of like bottle in some of these anxieties and some of these troubles and some of that energy, which can make Mars a little bit touchy and sensitive for those very reasons.
Probably one of the biggest problems with Mars in Cancer is that like emotional reactivity tends to take a lot of things very personally, right? Or insults personally, or take things as insults that aren't necessarily insults. So having Mercury there to help add clarity, to maybe organize or construct, ways of channeling that. Like you might still feel like an uncalled for reactivity to something that somebody is saying. Like I kind of want to murder you right now, but I'm not going to, because that would not be a very logical thing to do. I can set that aside, and it facilitates coexisting with maybe outsized emotional reactions. So, still, fairly difficult to work with because it's Mars and Cancer. It's not inherently easy, but there's a lot of essential dignity along with the fall, right? And that Mercury sextile really helps. So give it a good 3.5 in terms of agency.
Okay, so moving on to our Wednesday, September 11th. This is our Mercury day, with Mercury at home, exalted in their element, as per some parts of the tradition. That is that Mercury does well in Virgo, like if it were in their element. So there you have it. Moving towards a sextile with Mars, escaping from the beams of the sun. So Mercury will soon be visible. And if yesterday with Mars, we saw Mars seeing a sword or finding that weapon, maybe it's Mercury, the merchant, who is selling these weapons, that has dropped that sword in the river to begin with. And here we have Mercury in their little shop, just displaying their swords to whoever wants to buy it. I feel like the thing that can be helpful about this Mercury-Mars sextile from Mercury's perspective is just that sort of directness that can come with Mercury-Mars, and like the salesmanship and the savviness that sometimes can be very helpful when you are a mercurial person out there in the world, like our business people and the like.
I actually like the image you used a lot because you get a lot of like craftsmanship with Virgo in general. Mercury is very strong, and it's like potentially taking through the Mars sextile like a sword with maybe some rust on it, and like cleaning it off, polishing it, or reforging it into something that is a little more refined, something that could maybe be sold or utilized. It's a good friend for Mars to have, and Mars and Cancer is a good project for Mercury and Virgo to work on. Lots of imperfections for Mercury to buff out.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, the day's not too difficult. Mercury has a lot going on in Virgo, like we said. So even if the little difficulty that we have today, which we settled out at 2, these are all things that are very easy to be tended to choose that mercurial problem solving to overcome some of these hurdles. So agency is at a max, which we love seeing today.
Yeah, it's like just difficult enough. We wouldn't want Mercury and Virgo to have no problems to solve, or I might start just making some.
All right, moving on to our Thursday, we have September 12th. This is, of course, our Jupiter day. Jupiter is in detriment in his element, being received in the sun's decan and receiving the sun in his terms through a square. So an odd situation of mutual reception there. While all that's happening, Jupiter is also in Mars's terms.
Yeah, this is like not too shabby. This is like maybe coming to the negotiating table at what might feel like a disadvantageous position, but like having an ace up your sleeve or having like a couple bargaining chips to work with. It's like being ready for a difficult negotiation or to look at a problematic situation with a new set of eyes, with maybe it's like a long or difficult plan to execute, but like you have one and you're ready to make the sale on it or to sell it as viable.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing about the day too is just that we're finally moving forward from a lot of the things that Jupiter has been dealing with for the past little while. And even in the image, I really wanted to reflect that because for the past few weeks, we've been dealing with Jupiter seeing nothing but boxes. It was just box, box, box. Let's say that Jupiter has opened all those boxes, and inside all those boxes were gears and other little trinkets. And though it's now many more things to deal with because when they were boxes, there were fewer. At least we know what they were, and maybe we can put these things to good use. I feel like there really is that sense of jovial hope starting to come through here, especially with the square to the sun. I feel like Jupiter and the sun being sect buddies or teammates, the sun can really provide some of that light and the hope that Jupiter needs. And that's why I have Jupiter here, like kneeling down in prayer. Just, I have all these cogs and wheels to do something with. Please, God, or the power that be, give me the light just so I know what
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. There's still like a lots of bits and pieces to put together, but like the borders of the puzzle are complete and like, the big picture is starting to come clear. I would say as far as Jupiter days have gone. We'll give it a good 2.5. And actually a fair bit one could do with it. I'll give it a 3.5 agency wise. I think especially because Mercury ruling Jupiter is so strong.
Well, moving on to our Friday. This is September 13th. Friday the 13th. With actually a pretty apt picture. Kind of looks spooky. So Venus is at home, out of element in Saturn's decan and in Jupiter's terms, overcoming the moon in Capricorn and moving towards a trine to Jupiter while separating from Saturn's Antiscia. I feel like this is really Venus in Libra coming to save everybody. It's Venus to the rescue. Emerging from the darkness with a bar of gold to give away to whoever needs it. I feel like, especially looking at Venus overcoming the moon in Capricorn, I think it's even applying at the beginning of the day from where we are here. It really does look like the keys to freedom in one way or another. For Jupiter, for the moon, for Saturn, everybody gets to have a little bit of the Venus and Libra juice, which is nurturing and uplifting, to say the least.
If not the keys to freedom, then at least the keys to a more spacious and better accommodated jail cell. It's the moon in Capricorn, which will be applying to a square with Venus in the morning, can be nice for like electional reasons. I think it's not like the warmest and fuzziest, but like really good for putting together like an actual full plan of some kind, or a getting a promotion, or climbing the corporate ladder in some way. It's not like the most sentimental or squishy Venus election, but it's good for like generating wealth. It's a Venus Jupiter trine. That's pretty good. You can ask a lot of that and get results.
For sure. And I think on that note, the day is not that difficult at all. I feel like even the little difficulties that we might have might just kind of like be tended to. And I think that's the really big sense of freedom that can come with the day. It's like, oh my God, like that thing that I was stressing about was actually like so easy to deal with when I actually tended to it. And I think that's the vibe of the day, and hence why we gave it or lowest difficulty rating in forever. There's no zeros because life is always difficult, but a 0.5 is as good as we can get. On that note 2, we maxed out agency to really emphasize how much we can get done this week. Well, moving along to our Saturday favorite image of the week. That took me forever to make, so it should be everybody's favorite image as well. It's Saturn and Pisces, Peregrine, out of element, in Jupiter's decan and terms, and soon being opposed by Mercury.
We're past the opposition of the sun, so Saturn's still pretty bright and shiny in the sky, but we're on the maybe waning phase of like the full Saturn. But like Saturn still has a lot of good support from Jupiter and from Venus through the mutual reception. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think with your image we talked about before, coming home, but finding out that home for you does not exist the way that it did before. It's a bit like a hard truth with like a sunny side as well. It's like, yeah, the country that you left that you're now returning to is not in existence anymore. It's actually, we call it something else now. We have a new governor, but we're going to grandfather you in. Like there's still a place for you here.
Yeah, and like with the image, really what I was thinking about with this is that like the Mercury opposition, yes, it's annoying, but it's not really blocking Saturn from returning to where it's been. We have like the lady just rowing herself back into the Piscean shores, but then there's like an inspector that tells her like, hey, like things have changed here. Maybe that delays Saturn even further. But with the Mercury opposition, maybe the delays are just like, hey, there's just some paperwork that you gotta do. You do get to move along, you will get to pass, but not before you do all these things in true Virgoan fashion. So I don't think it's the end of the world. It's not super difficult of a day. We gave it a 2.5 in difficulty, so that feels pretty good. So we settled at a 3 agency. There's paperwork, there's things to do, but we can do them, and that's nice.
Yeah, Saturn's been a little sloppy, so it has both support and the critique that it is so hungry for. So
yeah. All right, so last day of the week is September 15th. It is our Sunday, the sun in Virgo, with his host, Mercury, now also in Virgo, out of element in Mercury's decan and Mars's stern, moving towards a trine to Uranus and a Neptune opposition. The sun is getting busy with the invisible planets today. It's an interesting day. If we remember last week, the sun was scrubbing floors and Saturn was just pointing her finger at the sun, making sure that everything's done spotlessly. Now, I think past that opposition, I was imagining the sun trying to return to his performative glory. Maybe the sun on a Sunday feels like a street performer who is trying to sort out his grievances after taking a bit of a kick in the butt. But the sun is opposite Neptune and trying to Uranus. It's not really in the best sort of situation. It's dealing with these big problems. So the sun is out there playing his songs, but the audience doesn't really look like it's paying that much attention to the sun. That part of Virgo also can bring themes of legacy and things like that. And what I imagine could be happening here is that maybe the song that the sun is singing is not gonna give him any sort of benefit, but maybe somebody walks by and that really inspires them to write their own song, and then that person will go on to have success in life. Kind of sucks for the sun, but somebody's winning something.
We're our own special little machines, but we're also cogs in bigger ones. And that can be humbling to the point of maybe annihilating a sense of purpose or direction or reason for doing things. But, if you lean into a more selfless or bigger picture mode of looking at things, you can maybe tap into an identity that is rooted in your contributions to bigger things than yourself, to a legacy that maybe doesn't have you at the center of like an origin story, but that you're still part of. Yeah, we're going to give it a 3.5 because it is not comfortable viewing yourself as finite and tiny in the grand scheme of things. However, if you are unreasonably attached to things which only have like your name printed over the top, you may not end up contributing very much. But even those people with, their names on the top of things, there's hundreds, thousands, dozens, millions of people who are contributing and supporting that operation. And chances are you're one of those. So sorry about the bad news, but maybe with the eclipse coming and the sun being on the south node side of that, there's some releasing of overly egoic attachments that can be worked with.
Nice. So a nice 3.5 difficulty and a 3 agency. Cool. So let's go through our week in summary. In one sentence, Kyle, what's Monday like?
Pick your poison carefully. Maybe. No.
Nice. I like that. I guess Tuesday would be to wield or not to wield is the theme of the day.
Yo. Like that. Wednesday? I don't know. Having a real good mess to clean up. Maybe.
Nice. On Thursday, I guess, I don't know. Jesus, take the wheel. We'll go with that.
Oh, Friday. The world is your oyster.
Cool. For Saturday, row your boat, I guess.
Like that. Sunday. Maybe you are just another brick in the wall, but, be the best brick in the wall that you can be.
I love that. All right, so taking a look at our agency and difficulty ratings for the week, it looks like the week starts pretty middling and kind of stays middling throughout the whole entire week. But we do have a couple spikes of agency, especially on our Wednesday and our Friday. But really, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Last week it was pretty good, and this week is also looking even better. So middle of the week looks pretty good.
Yeah, take it. It's one of the better weeks that we have for a bit, so take it in, enjoy. So we get on average the 2.5 difficulty and a 4.5 muscly agency. You can do a lot with this week. Let's call it flex points. You got four flex points for the week,
4 flex
and only
points,
2
I love that.
winky points.
All right, so this is our week of September 9th. Looking a lot better than previous week, so I really hope you guys enjoy this week and take full advantage of especially those middle days to get shit done and be happy. If you want a reading with me, I am Joe G, and I'm at themercuryrising.com.
And I'm Kyle Pierce at KylePierceAstrologer.com.
But yeah, this is it, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.